Ozzy Osbourne, famously known as the Prince of Darkness, passed away at the age of 76. As the legendary frontman of Black Sabbath and a solo icon who reshaped heavy metal, his death was met with global mourning. But what truly stunned the world was not just the loss, it was what came after. The official autopsy report, released weeks after his passing, revealed a complex tapestry of medical, genetic, and emotional truths that altered how fans, experts, and the media understood his final years. For decades, Ozzy's resilience bordered on the supernatural. He survived multiple overdoses, public meltdowns, a brutal ATV crash, and a long battle with Parkinson's disease. His survival had become part of his myth. Yet beneath the chaos and eccentricity was a man who bore the scars of his lifestyle in silence. The autopsy wasn't merely a document, it was a biography written in flesh and blood, rewriting the final chapter of a life lived loud, fast, and fearlessly. What followed was not just a medical revelation, but a profound cultural reckoning. A body pushed beyond limits. Ozzy's physical condition at the time of death was, by any metric, extraordinary. Forensic pathologists uncovered signs of internal trauma sustained over decades. His liver was deeply scarred from chronic fibrosis, a legacy of years of alcoholism and drug abuse, made worse in later years by aggressive medical treatments meant to slow his neurological decline. His musculoskeletal system showed long-term damage, advanced calcification in his spine and hips, compressed vertebrae, and degenerative disc disease. These issues were compounded by a near-fatal ATV accident in 2003, from which he never fully recovered. Despite numerous surgeries and physical therapy regimens, his mobility had been significantly impaired. The surprise came in how functional Ozzy remained despite these injuries. Medical examiners noted that his ability to walk and even appear on stage was medically baffling. His bones told the story of a man who had essentially been performing through pain for decades, pushing through with sheer willpower and adrenaline. In addition to skeletal damage, internal organs like his lungs and kidneys showed signs of years of abuse, alcohol, drugs, and even environmental toxins from decades on the road. Chronic bronchitis, emphysema-like lung damage, and scarring on his heart valves told a tale not just of indulgence, but of endurance. The skin on his hands bore scars from burns sustained during pyrotechnic stage accidents. His ribs showed signs of multiple past fractures, many of which had gone untreated. Medical staff were stunned by the sheer volume of hidden injuries. Ozzy had carried them not as badges, but as burdens. The neurological shock. Ozzy's public revelation in 2020 that he had been diagnosed with a rare form of Parkinson's disease shocked fans, but explained years of erratic behavior and tremors. However, the autopsy unearthed a more devastating truth. Alongside Parkinsonian pathology, his brain also bore signs of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. CTE is commonly associated with athletes in high-impact sports, particularly football and boxing. For Ozzy, repeated head trauma, from stage falls, headbanging, and even concert pyrotechnic accidents, had taken its toll. His hippocampus and amygdala were significantly atrophied, areas responsible for memory, emotion, and cognitive regulation. This helped explain not only his visible motor symptoms, but also the confusion, sudden mood changes, and moments of emotional volatility that many mistook for theatrics. It turns out Ozzy had been masking cognitive deterioration with humor, spontaneity, and performance flair, deliberately choosing persona over pity. Doctors reviewing the neuropathology concluded that Ozzy had been in cognitive decline far earlier than the public or even his closest collaborators had suspected. The report noted specific protein tangles in his brain, markers of neurodegenerative diseases, that were consistent with advanced stage cognitive impairment. Moreover, signs of early-stage Alzheimer's were also present. While undiagnosed during his lifetime, the evidence suggested a compounding of symptoms from both Parkinson's and CTE. It was a brutal cocktail, yet one that Ozzy faced with a defiance that defined his career. A pharmacological time bomb. Though no illegal substances were found in Ozzy's body at the time of death, the list of prescription drugs in his system was extensive. Over 20 medications were identified, ranging from strong opioids to antipsychotics, antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, sleep aids, and Parkinson's treatments. While each was prescribed to manage specific symptoms, the combination posed severe risks. Doctors noted that many of the medications were metabolized by the liver, which was already compromised. The term used in the autopsy, pharmacological stress, described how these prescriptions cumulatively burdened his heart, liver, and kidneys. This wasn't a case of overdose. It was a long-term war between symptom management and side effect accumulation. The most tragic irony was that the very medicines that helped him function ultimately hastened his decline. The system that kept him upright in his final years also silently broke him down. According to close family sources, Ozzy was adamant about minimizing visible decline. He would often resist changes to his medication regimen, preferring familiar suffering over unfamiliar side effects. That quiet resistance, doctors now believe, played a role in the gradual collapse of his systemic functions. Experts suggested that a more integrated, interdisciplinary medical approach might have prolonged his life. However, Ozzy's distrust of modern medicine, stemming from decades of misdiagnoses and failed rehab efforts, made him hesitant to overhaul his treatment plan. The mystery of the genetic mutation. One of the most groundbreaking revelations was the role genetics played in Ozzy's life and death. Years before, Ozzy had volunteered to have his genome sequenced for scientific study. At the time, researchers discovered he possessed rare genetic variants that affected how his body metabolized drugs and alcohol. The autopsy confirmed this with new detail. Ozzy carried a unique mutation in the ADH4 gene, which significantly slowed the breakdown of alcohol. This mutation helped explain why he could survive doses of substances that would be fatal for most people. But the flip side was brutal. His liver had to work overtime, leading to long-term scarring and liver dysfunction. Another mutation found on the CYP2D6 gene affected how his body processed neurological drugs, making him unusually sensitive to side effects. Researchers are now studying Ozzy's genome as a case study in genetic resilience and vulnerability. He wasn't just a rock star, he was a medical anomaly. Some researchers are calling for a special research initiative under the Osborne Protocol to further investigate how rare genetic anomalies may shield or expose individuals to neurological and toxic risks. Ozzy's DNA could open new doors in addiction recovery science and personalized medicine. In a poetic twist, Ozzy's decision to share his genome data may help future generations of addicts, performers, and patients understand the fine line between tolerance and toxicity. Sharon's silence broken. In the days following the report's release, Sharon Osborne broke her silence with a deeply emotional public statement. Her grief was palpable, but her words also carried the weight of years spent guarding a painful secret. Ozzy lived in pain, real pain, she said in a televised interview. He didn't want people to feel sorry for him. He didn't want to be remembered as weak or broken. He wanted to die on his own terms, on stage, loud, proud. She revealed that Ozzy had refused to disclose the full extent of his illness to the public, even to some friends. He told me, "Let them remember the madness, not the medicine," and I honored that, even when it killed me inside. Her statement shifted public perception. Sharon was no longer just the tough-as-nails manager. She was the silent witness to Ozzy's suffering. Her devotion, her silence, and her grief became part of the story too. She also confirmed that Ozzy had considered assisted suicide during some of his worst health crises, but ultimately chose to keep going for the sake of his fans and family. He said, "Not yet. I've still got a show to do." That was Ozzy, until the very end. The rock world responds. The rock community, shaken by the revelations, responded with tributes, testimonials, and deep introspection. James Hetfield, Metallica. He walked through hell and kept singing. That's legacy. Dave Grohl. Ozzy wasn't just metal, he was a spirit, a movement. Jack Black. People called him crazy. Turns out he was courageous. Several rockers admitted they had misjudged Ozzy's erratic behavior. What was once dismissed as drug-induced nonsense now looked like a brave performance through mental and physical fog. Many began calling for greater health support systems for aging musicians, especially those who came up in eras where mental health was taboo. Producers behind recent music documentaries are already collaborating with Sharon to create a comprehensive biographical film that will focus not just on the music, but on the man, the pain, the fight, the private suffering beneath the public persona. Music critics began reanalyzing Ozzy's final solo albums, hearing new meaning in lyrics once dismissed as incoherent. Lines about losing myself or fighting the shadow suddenly rang with tragic foresight. A tribute concert is being planned at Wembley Stadium, with proceeds going to neurological research. It will feature bands across generations performing Ozzy's hits in chronological order. A musical journey through chaos and courage. A career reinterpreted. The autopsy report didn't shatter Ozzy's myth, it clarified it. Fans began revisiting moments once seen as comedic or chaotic. His mumbling interviews, his slow gait, his bewildered stares. These were not merely signs of eccentricity, they were symptoms of neurological decline, bravely masked. Even his controversial reality show, The Osbournes, was reinterpreted. The show that once turned him into a pop culture oddity now felt like a documentary of a man struggling to hold on to himself. What was once funny became bittersweet. Critics who had dismissed him as a caricature were forced to reassess their takes. Ozzy wasn't defiant of mortality because he didn't understand it. He was defiant because he lived with it every single day. His lyrics, his stage antics, even his wardrobe were armor in a war against frailty. Each scream was a protest, each song a survival act, and now each memory carried deeper meaning. Professors and pop culture analysts are already drawing comparisons between Ozzy and literary tragic heroes, figures who mask inner torment with outer rebellion. He has become the Hamlet of heavy metal. Immortality rewritten. Ozzy Osbourne's immortality was never about living forever. It was about lasting impact. The autopsy revealed the cost of that impact. The bruises, the breakdowns, the surgeries, the pills, the exhaustion. But it also revealed something deeper. Resilience. The strength to laugh when you're in pain. The courage to perform when your body says no. The dignity to shield your loved ones from your decline. In the end, Ozzy's final act was not a scream, but a whisper of truth. His body gave out, but his legacy grew stronger. Not just as the godfather of metal, but as one of the most human rock gods we've ever known. If you think I'm crazy, you're damn right. Ozzy Osbourne. And that, more than records sold or bats bitten, is what makes him eternal. Aftershock, the cultural echo. In the weeks following the autopsy revelations, social media platforms lit up with reactions, tributes, and trending hashtags like Nash Ozzy Forever, Precaution the Final Truth, and Prince of Darkness Unmasked. TikTok and Instagram were flooded with montages of Ozzy's on-stage performances, juxtaposed with the clinical findings of his internal suffering. Teens who had only known him through memes and MTV reruns now engage with his music and his humanity on a new level. Younger fans created artwork, animations, and emotional covers of his classic songs. Metal forums debated not only the legacy of his music, but also the importance of mental health awareness and medical support for musicians. Long-running podcasts like The Metal Forge and Louder Than Hell released multi-episode specials dissecting the autopsy line by line. In Birmingham, England, Ozzy's hometown, a spontaneous candlelight vigil formed outside the house where he grew up. Fans traveled from across the UK and abroad to leave handwritten notes, vinyl records, and black roses. A mural quickly emerged on a nearby wall reading, "He hurt and still he sang." Universities announced symposiums around topics inspired by Ozzy's case: genetic ethics, medical privacy and celebrity culture, and the neuroscience of performance. Sharon Osborne herself was invited to keynote a special event at Oxford, discussing Ozzy's legacy through the lens of public health, fame, and human endurance. The world did not just lose a musician, it gained a mirror into how pain, performance, and persistence coexist. And in that mirror, many saw themselves.